Alright, this is part 2 of our lesson on static electricity. Last time we mentioned that you have 3 different ways of creating static electricity: friction, conduction, and induction. Now in this video we are going to be looking at how to charge an object by friction. To do this, we would rub 2 objects together. Now, when you rub 2 objects together, a force of friction is created, and this force is able to cause electrons to move from one object to the other. So in the previous lesson we learned that only the electrons can move, and therefore when an object gains electrons it becomes negative or negatively charged. The object that loses electrons will become positive or positively charged. Now, our first example, we'll be looking at a polythene rod which is rubbed with a duster. A duster is basically a piece of cloth that is used in polishing, like for example polishing jewelry. Alright, so what happens is that when the rod is rubbed with the cloth, electrons from the cloth move to the rod. Right? So obviously if electrons leave the cloth will become positive and the rod will become negative. So here we have the situation after rubbing, where we see that the cloth has become positively charged because it now has an excess of positive charges, while the rod has become negatively charged because it had gained electrons. So the cloth has an excess of positive charges while the rod has an excess of negative charges. Now if the same duster is used with a different material, for example acetate, this rod is made of acetate, but we are using the same duster. This time electrons will move from the acetate to the duster, and therefore the acetate will become positive while the duster will become negative. So here we have the situation after rubbing. So the acetate rod had lost electrons and therefore it had become positively charged. So it now has an excess of positive charges, while the duster has become negatively charged because it now has an excess of negative charges. Now, charging by friction is not only seen in experiments, it happens in everyday life. And some good examples, we are going to use 5 examples to show. Now, did you know that you can get a small shock if you step out of a moving vehicle barefoot or barefooted? So if you were in a car driving and you step out of the car after it had stopped, then you could get a small shock if you step out without shoes. This is because while the car is driving, both you and the car will become charged, right? And when you step out, some of those charges will be uh, lost from your body by you making contact with the ground. So why does the car become charged? As the car moves through the air, the air molecules hit against the car and cause it to become charged. So this is the same friction. So not because you're not seeing the air doesn't mean that the car is not pushing away the air. The car has to move through the air, and so in doing that, friction is created, and that friction causes cars to become charged. You can also become charged if you walk across a carpet. So at some time you walk across a carpet, and if you touch the metal handle of a door, then you may see a small spark. But more than likely, you have to be in the dark to see that spark. Another example, clothes become charged while spinning in a dryer. And you can experience this because when you take out the clothes, you will notice that some of them stick together. Alright? So the reason for them sticking together sometimes is because they had become charged while they were spinning in the dryer. And lastly, fan blades become charged while spinning. Now you may ask yourself, why does the fan blade have so much dust on it even though the fan is spinning? Right? That's a nice observation. The fan blade has a lot of dust on it. Why? Now this is because while the fan blade is spinning, it is also moving through the air and is developing a charge. So the dust particles, some of them are also charged, and so they stick. If they have the opposite charge to the charge on the fan blades, they will stick to the fan blade. While combing your hair, if your hair is free from moisture, your comb can develop a charge as well. Alright, but your hair has to be free from like any form of chemicals. It has to be completely dry. So while you're combing your hair, there is friction between the comb and your hair, and so the comb becomes charged. Your hair also becomes charged as well. Alright, that's it.